Hi everyone, it's Killshot 99 Gaming. This is The Walking Dead Season 10 update, and we're going to talk about how Judith might have already saved Negan, some stories that are out there from Kaylee Fleming and Jeffrey Dean Morgan. A couple things that are making the works, so we'll jump into that in a little bit. Before we get started, do want to give a special shout out to the Patreon Army. You can see them up there on the screen. Thank you so much for everything that you guys do. And, before we get too far into it, I do have to say, am I the only person? Sorry, we're having some technical difficulty with the artwork in the background, but we'll get there. I was doing a little bit of hot air balloon research. Am I the only person that did that? I mean, last night we were measuring hot air balloons. The average size of a balloon, 70. So apparently, balloons can be up to 100 feet, like that beer balloon. So that's not uncommon. Now, how you blow them up, and I don't know. I was just intrigued by it, and I started looking up, air displacement, velocity, formulas, just a whole lot of stuff. So it made more sense than I initially thought about. Oh, is my voice different, David? Rolex. Do I sound different, or is it just David's hearing? Am I more south? Or am I don't know. I mean, I sound normal to me. I sound southerny. Okay, well, hey, it's not a bad thing. It was a big balloon. Thank you, Robin. A little southerny. But I do have this, and I want to get into tonight's topic, but I know that, many of you were curious about this balloon. So the only thing that seemed a little bit unrealistic about it in hindsight was the rate of deceleration, of like how quick it fell to the ground. So yes, these balloons can be 100 feet tall. It only takes about 30 minutes to fill a hot air balloon, and you're actually, now, typically it does take several people in order to do it, but you basically just heat the air, and as you're heating the air, the hot air rises, and it goes above the cooler air, and then the balloon ascends. Now, what was a little bit unrealistic, though, is how quick the balloon started going to the ground. So I had to look this up. I don't want to bore you guys too much with numbers, but displacement and velocity. If the average, anybody know, I'll give a kills coin, if anybody can tell me, actually, whoever's the closest will get a kills coin. What is the average feet per minute that a hot air balloon descends? There's a whole lot of grids out there. There's a whole lot of charts. But there is a certain speed that when you stop heating the air, the balloon starts to come to the ground. Nobody's close yet. All right. There you go. Ron O'Corin, 22 and a half feet. So Ron is the closest. Ron's 22. So Ron O'Corin, I hope I said that right. You have a kills coin that can be used on Friday night. We'll add you to the ledger. So when you stop putting fuel or you stop heating the air, your average hot air balloon will descend at 22 and a half feet per minute, not per second, per minute. So if this balloon was even 315 feet up in the air, it would have taken 14 minutes. That's a pretty long time. That's not like, slamming down onto the ground like crazy mode. I mean, you got some time. And the way we figure this out is speed equals distance over time. So the speed of the balloon would be negative 22.5 feet per minute, and the distance would be negative 315 feet because it's decreasing. So you have to rearrange the formula, and you have to have time equals 315 over 22.5. You divide to 2, would have taken 14 minutes for the balloon to hit the ground, just at 315 feet. So it's not like, oh my God, we're going to crash. They've actually got some time. So that happened a little bit faster. Other than that, I'm good with everything else. All right, let's get to some real stuff. You guys are, man, I didn't know we were going to talk physics tonight. That's some mass shenanigans. Whole lot of stuff. So we're gonna fast forward to October. How many of you feel like that a lot of times our group is so accurate that by the time the show comes on, that it feels like almost common sense? That we've talked about some of these theories, and then when we see it play out, even some of our very own in the Army are like, okay, well, this is what's going to happen. It makes too much sense, right? Have we been in some situations like that? Because then you start to see other people talk about it. You start to see media outlets. You start to see, periodicals and websites saying this is the way it's going to go down. So it's pretty interesting the way that plays out. And I'm going to give you a couple examples in a second because we got a couple super chats. Fluff the Flamethrower says, did anyone else have up, up, and away by Fifth Dimension in their head when they saw the balloon? I did not. I had Sugar Ray. I just want to fly. Put your arms around me, baby. Put your arms around me, sugar. That's what I had. I mean, I was thinking a song about flight. Tom Ferreira, Alpha may attempt to kill Judith along with other major characters, and Negan may attempt to kill Alpha for hurting Judith. Tom, I don't dislike that, but I'll tell you why I don't think it's going to happen that way. I don't see, I mean, I could be wrong. I see Judith on a path of very little consequence. Because I think the more things that happen to Judith, like if Judith is captured or Judith is almost killed, then I don't think Michonne leaves Judith behind. And I do think Michonne is going to leave Judith behind. So, to kind of my point a little bit earlier, and Tom, I'm glad you super chatted that because you tie in exactly to what we were talking about. Because some of our, I guess you could call them predictions. Sometimes they're bold predictions. But then they become, a good portion of them become reality. RJ's gone, Christmas Girl. RJ will not be left behind. And you guys can write that down right now. In fact, last season, this was a prediction that I made that I caught some heat for it. Because when I said Michonne will leave with RJ, the first question that many people asked was, no, she's not leaving Judith behind. And I said, well, wait a minute. We've seen this bond between Judith and Negan. Negan is going to do something heroic and save Judith. And he did. Judith went after Daryl's dog. Negan, just left her behind, went and saved Judith. So he showed everybody in Alexandria, that he can be trusted when it comes to Judith. Because he's always been kind of that self-centered, self-preservationist. And you can't really, in a moment of instinct where he left in the snow and put his own life at risk to go find her, he didn't have to do it. He could have just stayed, holding the rope, getting where they were going. Somebody else could have ran after her. Princess Pie, I think Negan's going to have a major part in the new season. He's going to win his redemption from Daryl through Judith, since Michonne will probably leave her with her Uncle Daryl and Aunt Carol. Good point. And Emmy, right underneath that, Princess Pie, I'm going to call on a couple people because there's two or three things that all make sense. And Emmy says Negan thinks of Judith as his own. So, Princess Pie, I think you're right. Emmy, I definitely think you're correct. And as I was looking through some of the pictures today, how many people remember when Negan made spaghetti? What do you remember most about Negan making the spaghetti? He had fun? Exactly, Princess Pie. Oh, he was holding Judith, and then they went out on the porch, and there are some pictures of him to where he literally looked like his own child. He was holding baby Judith, and he was just smiling like you've never seen. You always saw Negan with that smirk and that grin, like, he's always up to something. You can visualize that smirk. But with Judith, it was different. It was a natural smile that he wanted that to be his kid. And I think he wanted to make things right with Rick at some point where he could be a part of that family. So never had kids of his own, but he did work with kids when he was in high school. He was a high school teacher. High school gym teacher, I think is the rumor. So there's always been that bond with Carl and Judith. So kind of back to Tom's super chat of will Judith get in trouble? It's possible. It's possible. But I don't think she's going to be the centerpiece to the Alpha storyline. I think Judith's value is going to be that she's safe and that Michonne feels comfortable leaving with RJ and leaving Judith behind. Because the stars really have to line up for Judith to be left behind. Bug says, what if Negan and Lucille had a kid who died? It's a possibility, Tom. I don't know that we're going to get a lot more Negan backstory on The Walking Dead. If Negan went off of the show and had his own series, that's possible. Omicron, good point. Negan's too valuable to the show moving forward. He is. So Negan's not going anywhere. Negan will not die. But I would make the case, how many people think that Judith has become pretty valuable to the show as well? I think a lot of people are going to say yes. She was a good majority of the redemption of Negan. There were a lot of people, a lot of you in fact, I'm going to call a few people out. How many of you still despised Negan when he was first in the jail cell and Rick was coming down talking to him? Even though he'd already been locked up for a year and a half. How many people still had some resentment toward Negan? So, how many started to lessen that resentment as you started to see the Judith and Negan scenes play out? One in particular where they were talking to each other. You knew she was visiting him every day. She started to defend him. He had to put on his cap and he had to go back and see things firsthand. And then, the two of them together really started to change that situation. Will the Bill. Judith is very valuable, but I don't see how that plays out with Michonne showing up in the movie without her. Well, Will, This is where you have to let the professionals go to work. This is what I do. We're going to make the case. See, when we funnel a theory, we have to think of the end result and then the possible paths in order to get there. And too often, we take a theory and we shoot a theory down because 50% of our group's going to think one way and 50% of our group's going to think the other way. And that's natural. So what we have to do is we have to entertain the possibilities. So when we entertain the possibilities, we actually make that path that you're talking about through a method that we call funneling. And there's several things going to happen. So Tom Bug Ferrer says, I didn't hate him as much, but still wasn't fond of him. It's fair enough. And Tom, I think to your point, that's where a lot of people are right now. I don't have the exact numbers written down, but I will tell you in the last 3 years, when Negan bashed in Glenn and Abraham, 95% of our audience hated Negan. When Negan threw Daryl in prison, more of our audience. But when Negan started to build that bond with Carl, it went from about 95 down to 80. When Rick and when Carl died, then it went probably from 80 down to 70. When Davey was forcing himself on Sasha and Negan killed Davey, it probably went to 50-50. Where now, all of a sudden, 40% of the people that hated Negan all of a sudden gave him a pass, and half the audience, they were fine. So now we're really appealing to the other 50%. I got Fluff super chatting it. Fluff says, Judith staying gives Rick and Michonne 100% reason to return to the group, probably in the series finale. I can wrap myself around that, Fluff. I still don't know if Rick will ever step foot on The Walking Dead again. I know that's not a very popular opinion because people want to see it happen. I think the audience would be very forgiving. When they say Rick Grimes' last episode, I feel like it's truly going to be his last episode. Now, whether or not they transition that to the movie would be a different story. So, yeah, I'm not ready to go out on a limb with that one just yet, either for or against. But my instincts tell me that Rick will never return. So, and I think to Will the Bill's point a little bit ago, well, Newfield, here's the thing. It's almost like, I can give you an analogy. When you do something like, if a company says we're having a going out of business sale, legally they have to go out of business. You can't have a going out of business sale and then stay in business because you're scamming the audience. And I know it's not exactly the same, but when you do commercials and you hype up an audience and you convince them to watch the show because you're selling that fact of watch the show, only 2 episodes left of Rick Grimes, and then tune in tonight, and you're selling this to all the media and everything else and saying, all right, buy these commercial slots because we're going to go out there and pump this up and advertise it and say this is Rick Grimes' final episode. So the advertisers are paying more money. Now, just from and I'll get to Princess Pie's question in a minute, just from a legal standpoint, from an advertiser, let me get to that in 1 second because I want to get to Princess Pie's question. Just wondering, do you guys think Negan would have redemption from the viewers if he was not acted by JDM? Absolutely. I mean, that's a question for everybody. I think his charisma fits the part. But I think he's a byproduct of the role. The role, Michael Cudlitz, same thing. I mean, he played a good Abraham, but the writers take a part in what they say, what they do, and, the showrunners have to, they act it out. They do outtakes. If it doesn't work, then they do another one. So they have to get it right so it has a good feel. So Tom Ferreira, maybe Andy's just going to see how the show turns out and decide whether or not it comes. All right, let me address this because several of you, I need to give you a good example of this. So just pause for a second. Take your Walking Dead heart and put it to the side. All right, I want all of you to pretend you're an executive for a large brand. Type the brand in the channel right now. Whichever company you want to represent. You want to represent Coke, you want to represent Amazon, you want to represent Viagra, you want to represent single, mingle, whatever, speed dating, whatever you want. All right, that's your brand. Everybody come up with a brand. Because it's the only way you're going to get it. Right now, you're not a Walking Dead fan. You represent a company. All right. So I work for AMC. And a lot of you work for Apple. And Apple has the AirPod commercials, right? Have you guys seen those? A dude dancing, and they always have like some breakdancing move, and they can always lean to the side, and then they can, apparently, when you're wearing AirPods, you can do a flip, and you land on the sidewalk, and it bounces you up in the air like it's a trampoline, like all that cool stuff you can do if you're wearing AirPods. Okay? So, I work for AMC, and I go to you and say, hey, this is like the Super Bowl. We are going to hype this show up, and our normal ads are going to cost you $1 million for a 30-second ad. But you know what? This is Rick Grimes' final episode. Wait a minute. Yeah, it's Rick Grimes' final episode. So we're going to tell all the viewers it's his final episode, and because it is, and we're going to double, normally we have 2.5 million viewers, we're going to have 6 million viewers watch. So instead of paying us $1 million for this 30-second ad, you're going to have to pay us $3 million for this 30-second ad. Now, you are all very savvy marketing people, so you say, wait a minute, well, that's a pretty big audience because it's Rick Grimes' final episode. All right, here, let me cut you a check for $3 million. So now you pay me the money, and we have a binding contract. You're paying me more money because this dude is not coming back to the show. And I charged you double. So what happens if he comes back to the show? Would you consider it a breach of contract? And would you think that maybe you got ripped off with your advertising dollars because I told you a certain event was going to happen and I charged you more money for it? So legally, it's a problem. Not only for the viewers, but for the people that are paying all this money to advertise. It's false advertising. So as much as we can say we want him to come back, there are problems to him coming back legally. Now, could it happen? Sure, it could happen. And, I mean, in fact, if you really, really wanted to be a hard ass about it, I mean, all of us could technically get together and have a class action lawsuit against AMC and say something outrageous. I mean, there's frivolous lawsuits all over the place, right? Couldn't a couple of thousand of us get together and say, well, I wouldn't have watched if they wouldn't have said it was his last episode, and, I missed my kid's recital, because of that, and the only reason I missed their recital is because I was watching, and I wouldn't have been watching if you wouldn't have told me this, and now my kid hates me because I missed their recital, and I'm a bad dad, and so on and so forth. You get the point. The point is, there's a lot of politics that go to it. So he ain't coming back. Now, could people cross over into the movie all day long? Absolutely. But, I go back to the fact of, why do we need Rick Grimes back on the Walking Dead TV show? We don't. We've got him in movies. If they really wanted to, and Rick wanted to come back, they could have the Rick Grimes show, and it wouldn't be The Walking Dead, right? He could have his own additional spinoff. Well, Julie, that's the thing. It's, I hear that like we miss him. But do we really miss him? I mean, we've got all this other story and all these other people. He's not gone. There's still things that we can experience with Rick Grimes in the Walking Dead universe. And I don't think they're going to kill off his character. And, I just got a question. I asked this question before, and the way many of you answered was pretty incredible. How many people thought Angela Kang did an amazing job, and the second half of season 9 was one of the best half seasons, if not the best half season in the history of The Walking Dead? How many people would say they enjoyed the second half of season 9 more than they've enjoyed any of The Walking Dead in a long time? Follow-up question. How many episodes was Rick Grimes in the second half of last season? Zero. There's your answer. So I would say we didn't really miss Rick Grimes that much on the TV show because we knew that we're going to have a Rick Grimes movie, because we knew that he's going to be a part of the universe. And that gives us a chance to really appreciate some of the other writing, some of the other acting, some of the other things that are going on. Now, if Rick would have died, all bets are off. I think a lot of us would have been miserable. Even though it was good, we would still been in mourning like, okay, yeah, the Whisper story is pretty good, but Rick's dead. I can't stand it. But he's not. Will the Bill. It's not that we need him back, but if the show ends, it would be an awesome emotional roller coaster if he showed back up at the end. I don't think the show's going anywhere, Bill. The Walking Dead is a cash cow. Tom Ferrer says, I think season 9 is the best season so far. So, for a kills coin, over the last 3 years, who's the first person that can tell me what is the second most popular TV show on AMC? Many are going to answer at the same time. I'm just going to call on the first person I see. If it shows up differently on your screen, I apologize. All right, Najee Watts, Fear. First person to type it. Najee Watts, you got a kills coin. You can use it on Friday. So we got Ron and Najee so far. Okay. So if Walking Dead is number 1 and Fear the Walking Dead is number 2, that should give you a pretty good idea. Even when Fear does not get the best reviews, it still is the second most watched show on AMC because of the Walking Dead audience. So, would it be a nice homecoming? Would it be a nice reunion? Would it be a nice story to be told? Maybe, but I don't know that. I mean, we might be talking 10 years from now. I think the Rick story is going to be off in movies, and maybe he'll, be in another spinoff or something, but I don't think he's part of this particular Walking Dead universe any longer. Well, universe, yes, but this series, no. Princess Pie. I think if they wanted to go further in The Walking Dead and characters develop, they needed to take Rick out and let everyone else evolve, not in Rick Grimes' shadow. I think it was necessary. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I agree with everything in that statement. We got Alpha, we got Beta, we got Daryl actually using some complete sentences these days. We got the Judith Negan dynamic. We got Carol, we got Ezekiel, Eugene. I mean, it is loaded. It is loaded with talent. Wilson, dog showed up. Rick who? See, oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, we got introduced to a brand new character. We got dog. See, this is what I think is probably more to the point than anything else. Because I think many of you are guilty to not to not miss Rick on the show. I think it's more of that, because that's the only sense I can make out of it. I mean, when you tell me the show is better than ever, and the show doesn't have Rick, but then in a second breath, it's like, man, I really miss Rick. Well, did you love the show? Yes. Was Rick in it? No. So I think it's the guilt of not giving Rick his due, because the show was about Rick, but we didn't lose anything. In fact, we gained a lot. We gained a lot of character development. What's up, Eric Beach? Good to see you. He says, good evening, Army. Sorry, I'm late. Do you still miss him, Anna? In July, do you miss him? I mean, I'm curious. We're starting a brand new season without Rick. Or is it when the show starts and you see someone else taking Rick's role or saying something and Rick would have done that differently? What would Rick have done in that situation? They wouldn't be in this situation if Rick was there. He would have stood up to Alpha, or he would have did something a little bit. Tom Ferreira, Shane and Herschel and Sasha came back, even if it's one episode. Well, Julie, I will say we haven't seen the Comic-Con preview yet. And sometimes that's par for the course. Because typically when we do these streams, May, June, July, when we're in Fear of the Walking Dead mode, the hype really starts once the Comic-Con trailer starts to make its round. Like a couple years ago, what was the biggest thing a couple years ago? It wasn't Rick Grimes. A couple years ago, it was like, oh my God, they got a tiger. It's Shiva. That was like all anybody could talk about was Ezekiel and Shiva. And last year, what was it everybody was talking about for the Comic-Con trailer? What was the one thing that you couldn't get out of your mind when you saw the trailer last year? It was Eugene and Rosita laying in the mud with the whispers walking by. That's what was played over and over and over again. Yeah. Where are they? It was pretty good. You guys need to thumbs up for that. That's directly from the comic. I'm probably going to get copyright infringed because I sounded exactly like a whisper. Yeah, it's pretty good, right? April Zaya says, hey, 999, been subscribed to you for 4 years. That's a long time. Well, hey, to you too. Thank you. Appreciate your support and appreciate you being here for a long time. So, you've been here since a lot of the old games that I played 4 years ago. And I still have a lot of gamers that will message me wondering why I'm not doing gaming videos. So April, do you remember the first video that you watched? Just curious. Just checking out a couple comments here. So, as we get the Comic-Con trailer, what do you think that we're going to see in the Comic-Con trailer, and what are you looking forward to see? Maggie teaser, possibility. Something to do with Michonne leaving, the aftermath of the Pikes. Michonne's departure. Yeah, I think there's going to be a big focus on two things that I'm really looking forward to. From a 1 to a 10, how evil did you think Alpha was last season? Be honest. I would not give her a 10. It did ramp up a little bit. But how evil did you think the character of Alpha was overall? Like, really? 10s? No. She wasn't that vicious, guys. Come on. Not until later on. Where's Omicron? Omicron, I'm going to ask a true whisper. From a 1 to a 10, honestly, Omicron, how evil did you think your leader was? I get it. I know, Chris. I know what she did and what her capabilities were. But I mean, from a viewer standpoint, just watching her, did you feel terrified by Alpha? I mean, so Alpha needs to step up the evil game. So, okay, let me ask it this way. Between Alpha's most barbaric scene, which was probably when she had the couple that was standing up to her, because we didn't see the decapitations in the border scene, so all we really saw was her walk up behind somebody and decapitate her own. What was a more vicious, more vile scene? Negan beating down Glenn and Abraham, or Alpha with that little scene, taking out one of her own, making a a scene in front of her group. Tom Ferrer says, Alpha is still a scumbag. Okay. Now, if I do this, April, since Batman Arkham Knight. Wow. Well, thank you. That's a very long time. Appreciate you being here for so long. All right. So, give me your first reaction when I do something like this. It's a little creepy, isn't it? Do you still have, like, those Negan memories? Was there any part of Alpha that made you feel like that? All right, here's the opposite. Your people have killed my people. There will be conflict. All right, I'm not giving that a 10. I'm not. There's no way on an evil scale of villains that Alpha is there. She's not. Princess Pie, her group never got her back at first sign of weakness. They will riot against her. I don't know. Hey, Princess Pie, I don't know if I agree with that, and I'll tell you why. It's implied that Alpha did some crazy stuff. All right, I'll give you the implied stuff. So, they showed the backstory of Alpha, and they showed the crazy derangement. We see the mask. We know that she's responsible for setting up this group that cuts people's faces off. That's implied. We saw her kill her own. We saw her tell her to put the baby down, and she looks over like, it's not a big deal. And at the end, when she was starting to get emotional and the other Whisperers over there, she killed them. So she's done all those things. But there is not a moment of anything that she's done that will trump 7-1. The Negan speech, the going person to person, kneeling down in front of Carl, not knowing, oh my God, is he going to kill Carl? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And then when he was swinging down on Abraham, and then after he swung down on Abraham to put that bloody bat in Rosita's face, come on. If I had to compare those two things, Negan still gives me that. So anyway, I'm hyping this up for a reason. Because this is a prediction that I made, I think, around the 13th episode of last year, or of last season. This season, they need to make Alpha absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, non-redeemable. I mean, we still have people asking this question. I had somebody ask this question in a stream a few weeks ago. Well, look, all the stuff that you said that Negan did, and I get it, he got redeemed. So if he can do all those things and he's more evil than Alpha, and we found a way to accept him, why not the same with Alpha? And that's a great point. Because based on that right now, I would not disagree. So I think, And I said, there's two things that I really need to see out of this Comic-Con trailer. You'll see I'm getting back to where we were. I need to see somebody that we like at the complete and utter mercy of Alpha. I wrote it out for him last year. You know, we did a couple videos, and I said, look, this is the way I think it needs to go down. You know, what if Daryl, Michonne, and you know, a couple of them. I knew Daryl, Michonne were two we were going to take a look at. Daryl, Michonne, and Carol. I think that's what we talked about. What if they're all tied up, and Alpha comes back, and she has this bag of heads, and one of them is Henry's? And you guys are like, man, Kills, that's creepy. And it would be, right? But we didn't really get to see that. We saw Alpha walk Daryl to a ledge. And then we saw a little bit of Sadiq's story of how it all went down. Princess Pie, Negan is narcissistic and Alpha is sociopath. Well, at one point, Princess Pie, many of our viewers said Negan's a sociopath. So I don't know that he's a reformed sociopath. I mean, I guess Rick's therapy, Rick's conversation possibly could accomplish that. But it's a matter of how we view the character at that time and moment. I'm not saying Judith is going to redeem Alpha, but I'm saying that the writers need to step it up a notch. Eric Beach, I'm hoping the group lets Negan off his chain. Negan could lead the new army of our group to victory. Eric, I think that is a great segue. I don't know that I even feel the need to have Negan retaliate at this point. Because I feel like the group could make their own decision. So if we're going to get old school Negan, where he's getting to a point where he picks up Lucille, the audience is not even going to let him pick up Lucille right now. But here's the way it's going to happen. We've got a week and a half before Comic-Con. So I'm going to tell you what I need to see in the way I think it's going to happen. First, we got Bug. Alpha made a man hold his own girlfriend's head. I get it. But Tom, Alpha making that happen and Negan beating Glenn down and dancing, is that even in the same ballpark? I don't think it's even in the same city. Wilson, Alpha could kill Rosita and Baby to up the game. So there's three things, actually. Two of them are related that I expect to see in the trailer. And I think it's going to give you the type of goosebumps that it gave you when you saw Shiva. All right. I need to see some clips of Alpha on a whole different level of torture and abuse. And she needs to have somebody captive that the audience is going to gasp. I can't believe Alpha got that level of control. Right? And Princess Pie is validating that. She says, is it fair to say that Alpha is going to bring the ultimate horror of action with Rosita death, and we're going to be afraid and disgusted by her, and that's why they kept her so pregnant? There you go. So, all right, Wilson said that, Princess Pie. So let's take that. So we see Rosita in a bad situation. Is that something the audience could get behind? Like, oh my God, Alpha may kill this pregnant woman. And we see that in one of the early clips. So it's going to start out with that entrance, with that dark mystery whisperer we better be afraid of the whispers this season. I'm going to tell you guys right now. I'm going to speak for the writers. Everybody in the stream, you need to be afraid of the whispers this season. And if you're not, it's because the writers did not make them evil enough. But we need to come in thinking that they did not finish the deal. And if they didn't finish the deal, they're going to darken it up a little bit more. Julie McGuire, I don't think that's going to happen on television. I don't think it's going to be like, hey, you guys owe me a baby. That is creepy and dark and yeah. But Julie, if they hint at it in the teaser, and bear with me, everybody, what if we've got a tied up Rosita, sweating, scared for her baby's life, and Alpha there with a big ass knife, just making it look as if something is about to go down. All right, visualize that for a second. E. Beach, Kills, what major death situation needs to happen to discuss and enrage the group so bad they'll follow old Negan? That's exactly where I'm going, Eric, because this is the way I see the trailer. And if it happens this way, remember that we visualized it. Okay? So I'm not saying she does it. What I'm saying is they put us in the moment of where we feel for a pregnant Rosita, and Alpha is there exacting her will, having control over one of our favorite characters who's vulnerable and desperate. Both of those. All right. Now stick with me for a second. Now, if that is the ultimate in evil, you guys probably know where I'm going, and they do these clips of different parts of the teaser, of the trailer, so everything doesn't happen in order. What would be the next scene that you would like to see, and it's a controversial scene, but would be, Emmy, I'm not saying they do it, but I'm saying what would be a scene that you could visualize where the audience gets a sense of, yes, like a wow moment. First person that gets it right, that reads my mind, I'm going to give you a Kills coin. Close. Close. Couple people are close. You're not there, though. I need more specific with Negan. I need more specifics for a Kills coin. Michael Curie with a Kills coin. Exactly. That is the only way. Michael Curie got it. If you have Rosita in dire straits, and then they clip to a scene of Negan picking up Lucille, at that moment, people will cheer the return of Lucille and not chastise Negan for using the weapon that killed Glenn. Does that make sense? Because that's a hard hurdle to get over. It's a very tough visual. And if they don't do it the right way, if they just show Negan in the trailer picking up Lucille, fans are not going to react positively to that. But if they show something prior to Negan picking up Lucille that really disgusts us and grosses us out, and we know, like, wait a minute, the only choice we have is this lunatic, we need Negan. We need somebody who's going to be fighting fire with fire. Now, we're going to let him roam around all season long carrying his bat. We don't care. So there's two things that I need to see so far. We got Kurt Fisher. I bet if Alpha did something to Dog, then all hell would break loose. Kurt, I don't think she might. I'm not saying she won't. Thank you for that super chat as well. Appreciate that. But I don't think that draws a parallel with Negan, but it certainly would make Daryl and Negan want to partner together. Now, how Rosita and Dog get in the same situation, that I don't know if Alpha's going to randomly come in and kidnap Rosita. Maybe Dog follows or something. I mean, it could play out. But if there's a group of people and Rosita's there, Dog's there, a couple other things, where people have connections to that, I certainly think Lucille's coming back. Tom Ferrer says, what if Rosita gave birth and she's trying to protect her baby, but Alpha kills it, makes her what? There's a lot of darkness with that, Tom. Let me say this. This is still cable television and it's not HBO. There's not going to be babies cut out and babies murdered. It's not going to happen. The best they could do is insinuate something's going to happen, but it won't happen that way. Believe me when I tell you, it ain't happening on this TV show and on this station. The backlash with AMC would be unbelievably strong, and they don't want that backlash. But can you do dicey things to plant it in people's mind without it happening? Absolutely you can. Like putting Rosita in a situation, maybe Eugene's there, maybe Dog's there, and then you show Negan picking up that bat right afterwards, and you get a couple clips of it. Okay. Now, we're going to go through the emotional roller coaster of a 5-minute trailer. So when we talked about that, when we said Rosita could be in a rough situation, she may have her baby, she may be pregnant, and Alpha could be in that kind of dancing around her, kind of like Negan did. I mean, remember how Negan just taunted everybody and taunted Glenn? So how would that make you feel as an audience member to watch a trailer and to see Alpha with a captive Rosita torturing her and just sort of mocking her and strutting around in that sadistic, sad, annoying voice? Does that do it for you? Does that put you in the I hate Alpha mode yet? It does. Most people, right? It's messed up. So, the follow-up question. Now, if you saw Negan picking up Lucille and, saying something like, Lucille, it's time for you to meet Alpha. Now, if he did that and you just saw Rosita's in trouble and you knew Negan's coming to the rescue, would that give you one of those Shiva moments like, yes, Lucille's back? I mean, does that give us something to talk about? All right, so mission accomplished. That's two things, but it's really one thing. All right, and then the big storyline this season, Tom Ferreira says, like Alpha cradling the baby covered in blood, and it's implied that she kills the baby. I got to let that process a little bit. That still might be a little bit too, unless Rosita's had the baby and the blood is Rosita's blood. There's a lot of things that can happen with that. Wow, you guys are really stuck on these. All right, so I see this baby is going to be a big deal. So if this shows up in the trailer, Princess Pie, would it be too far for Rosita miscarriages and her baby dies inside her womb and become a walker, or is it too gory? It would be... I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Is it possible that Rosita has a miscarriage and someone has to perform a C-section to cut the baby. Yes. I mean, I mean, there's a difference between doing that to save the mother and torturing the mother to take the baby. I mean, two totally different planes. So, could that happen this season? Yeah, but I mean, is it going to be part of the trailer? No. I mean, it would be something that if we saw it, it would be something we would talk about. And we almost saw it with Lori, right? I guess we could have. Nah, I don't agree, Ellis Smith. I disagree wholeheartedly. I'm going to tell you, if they don't have a big aha moment in the teaser, especially knowing how much people long for Rick Grimes, I don't think that aha moment is going to be Daryl shooting somebody with a crossbow. I really think it's got to be something that gets the audience on edge. And as we visualized, I mean, those two scenarios, that works. I don't think I'm too far off with the writers. All right, and then we've got the necessary part of the trailer. And I don't know how we can make this exciting because it has to happen. And I'm not saying that Michonne's not an exciting character, but there has to be a portion of the trailer that is dedicated to Michonne's exit, because we know that 4 or 5 episodes are going to be dedicated to her exit. So she's certainly going to be the focal point, but I don't know that people, when they watch the trailer, is going to be like, oh my gosh, okay, yeah, Michonne's walking away with RJ. That's exciting. Really looking forward to seeing that. But if there's a new character or... now, here's the way that could become exciting. Wheel the Bill says, no babies will be harmed on cable TV. I love Negan picking up Lucille, but it'd be another character. Carol to WSSN over Daryl. So let me, we'll see. We'll know in 10 days, right? So just don't be surprised when this goes down. So here's the question. And Walking Dead Nerd, I think you're spot on here. I'm thinking of a situation that would make the Michonne exit exciting for viewers. You got to read my mind again. Next person to read my mind gets a kills coin. So if you can tell me what they could do, what they could tease on this trailer, the first person that gets it, Roxanne Dunlap, there you go. That's exactly it. So Roxanne Dunlap, you are in my mind. That is not a great place to be. If they tease Maggie, even if it's Maggie's voice, anything that teases Maggie communicating with Michonne, that does it. So potentially, let's say the trailer has a Maggie entrance, Michonne exit, and has Negan with Lucille, and has a dark, creepy alpha that's going to kill a whole lot of people this season. Here's my question. Name something that you think could happen in the trailer that could trump that would be more exciting, that could beat that. And don't just give me a prediction of something you think would happen. I mean, it's going to have to be big. Kimberly, I don't know. Heath showing up would be bigger than Maggie showing up. Commonwealth, somebody with the Commonwealth. Rick's voice would definitely, Rick on the radio, I'd definitely give you that if we heard Rick's voice. No doubt about it. That would be up there at the top. So if we kind of get the splashes of those things, if we were to get Rick's voice, we would get Maggie, or we'd get a dark, torturing alpha, killing a lot of people. What about this? One more thing. What about a panned out distance shot of a second border scene? Would that intrigue people? Not knowing who might be on those pikes? I mean, that would be a great way to end it, right? And with that is the way that we're going to end it. So a lot of good stuff to talk about. Great group tonight. A lot of good super chats. Very engaging conversation. You guys are absolutely amazing. If you're new or if you're watching the playback, do me a favor. Subscribe. Hit the like button. This is probably one of our... this is kind of our staple. This is our channel. So I know a lot of you guys tune in. We have a great time with Freestyle Fridays. We have a lot of good times with random things. But kind of our claim to fame are streams like tonight. So if you had a good time tonight, if you like the way we sort of narrow things down and process and debate and chat and come up with theories, if there's anything that describes what we do, tonight is that stream. So if you guys had a great time, like I said, hit that like button. I want to thank all the Patreons in the top left-hand corner. You guys are incredible. The support you guys have for this channel month in and month out, year in and year out. A lot of long-term supporters up there. So you guys are absolutely phenomenal. The green team, you guys can see the 6-month channel members. We're growing. Over 70 channel members here as well. You guys get the custom emojis. Thank you so much. And we have a lot of people that are on both teams. We have a lot of people that are Patreons and also channel members. So appreciate everything that you guys do. I can't say it enough. Moderators, Emmy, Steph, Tommy, Kells. Also, that other group that's out there, my super chatting group. You guys know who you are. You add good comments, good content. Thank you for spicing up the chat as well. So the super chatters, thank you so much to you. And one big shout out, and we're a little bit over, so I'll do individual shout outs tomorrow. But one big shout out to the 999 Army and the green team. Do me one big favor. Let's see our 2 super fans up there. If you guys could show the emojis for Valar, who's our super fan of the month, and also for Lisa Khaleesi. And that, everybody, is where we're going to leave it. So really looking forward to the Walking Dead trailer coming out very soon. And tomorrow night, we're going to do some fear bold predictions, because I got a hunch this week's fear is going to be a lot better than people think. So I will see you all tomorrow night at 9:30. Have a good night. Peace.